house. As always, Tuesdays is Blues Days, and before the band go off at 8 o'clock, we've got a very special gentleman to interview tonight for our Blues Talking section. Excuse me if I read this, because I won't remember it, but terrific country blues, recommended. That's a magazine called Fruits, which used to be called Roots, and then they're called Fruits because they're folk and roots. This is among the year's finest albums, Folk Radio UK. Simple, sincere, authentic, folking, I'll say that word carefully. Echoes of John Fahey and Leo Kopka, Roots and Branches. Please welcome to Henry's, in an interviewed capacity, as distinct from what I hope we'll get in the new year, a playing capacity. Please welcome Amit Dattani. Now, we always start at the beginning. When did you first meet the blues?
Okay, so probably first met the blues when I was about 11 years old. And my brother bought me a John Lee Hooker CD, and I didn't quite get it to begin with. It took me a little while to understand, and it kind of sat on my shelf for a few years, and I picked it up again maybe 2 years later, and had a bit of a transformative experience with it. It was an album where he was playing on his own, and I found it difficult to conceive that he was playing all of that on his own. But before that, I listened to a variety of music that I suppose would lean towards the blues. My parents are from Uganda, and I listened to bits of kind of West African music as well, which obviously have a lot of kind of rhythms and bits and pieces. If you listen to Alif Akatora, it's like Johnny Hooker, to be honest. And so I suppose it started earlier than that even, probably.
Had you started to play anything by the time?
No, my playing actually started, I'm almost embarrassed / proud to admit, it started after I watched the film Back to the Future. And I saw Marty McFly playing Johnny B. Good, and I just was convinced I would like to do that, and started playing soon after that. Yeah.
And what were you playing?
So again, my brother, who was a big influence on me growing up, he played bass guitar, and he saw that he kind of caught me a few times holding his bass guitar and posing in front of the mirror. So he got me my first electric guitar and a little amplifier. And I set to work on trying to learn Johnny B. Good.
So
not very well.
Where did the revival of Johnny Hooker's album come into it? Was that after you stumbled across Johnny B. Good, you went back in time?
I did, yeah, I did. I picked it up again, and I suppose maybe it made more sense because I was actually beginning to understand the instrument a bit more by then, and it was, I suppose it was a bit more surprising to me that he was doing all that on his own, yeah. But I mean, from that kind of I started to get into all sorts of things really, predominantly Jimi Hendrix, and then started kind of travelling further and further back into people he was influenced by, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf. I got quite heavily into, for quite a while, Rory Gallagher, and I saw him as a DVD called Live at the Rock Palace, and there's an acoustic bit to it, which is almost an afterthought in a way, and he plays fingerstyle guitar, and this is at the time I'd been playing electric guitar, and after a while kind of struggling to expand what I was doing much beyond that, because I was limited with what I could do with that, and I saw him playing fingerstyle, and he did a version of Banker's Blues by Brunsey, and he's playing all the bass, alternating bass rhythms and the melodies, and I thought I'd quite like a piece of that if I can. So I set about trying to learn that, and that got me onto Brunsey and all those other people. Yeah.
How old would you be there when you started playing real blues? 15?
15, yeah.
Yeah, sort of late to stop.
Yeah.
So, do you still play the old stuff? Do you still listen to the old stuff?
Oh, I do, yeah, in my own time, definitely. Yeah, I suppose I'm more into kind of Piedmont blues as opposed to Delta blues, although I kind of certainly went through a Delta phase listening to Sunhouse and Patton and what have you, but I suppose it was just what I was drawn to, and maybe it was listening to those West African records early on and then being so rhythmical. So hearing Blind Boy Fuller, Blind Blake, Mississippi John Hurt, Brunsey, it kind of, that to me was kind of something that I wanted a bit more of. Although when I heard Blind Blake, I pretty much put my guitar in its case and just left it for a few weeks because there was no point really. I mean, yeah.
Did Blind Blake do Statesboro?
I think that was Mattel, yeah, who I also adored as well, yeah. So I kind of suppose the peak mod ragtime side of things, and I still listen to it a lot, yeah, definitely, yeah.
Right. So when did you start playing with intent to play in the public? Not in the public, play in public.
By accident, really. I never really intended to play in the public. I worked at a well-known department store.
Somewhere posh.
Not at all. No, in Briley Hill. And there's a chap who worked there who we got talking one day, and he was the only other person who'd ever heard of Big Bob Brunsey. And he played guitar, so we got together and had a bit of a jam, and we would swap CDs quite a lot. There's an old big library in Stourbridge, I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, and they'd have a huge CD selection, you could rent it out. That was like my Bible, that place. I'd go there every week and just take out CDs by all of these people: Little Walter, Muddy Waters, Brunsey, John Hurt, Fuller, Reverend Gary Davis. I was having my mind blown, and I'd get this and I'd share it with this chap, Rich. And we would start jamming and cobbling together our own versions of those tunes, which invariably sounded absolutely awful, but we had a lot of fun. And my brother booked us our first gig without my knowledge, so it wasn't an intentional move to playing live. We played at the Varsity in Wolverhampton. I nearly ran off before playing. Physically stopped and played on a heavy metal night, so it suited very well. But that was the beginning of it, really, I suppose. Yeah.
That was an acoustic duo.
It was an acoustic duo.
Pre-CD metal night. Okay.
Yeah. And I played with that duo for probably about 10 years. All Mellow Peaches were named after the Old Burnside tune, who Rich was very into. And he would play mandolin and he'd play harmonica. I suppose probably a few years ago I started playing more solo.
So who handled the vocals?
Well, to begin with, neither of us were very confident at all. I used to, there was a few gigs I'd play where they'd put two microphones in front of me because to pick up my voice I'd be so scared. And we had a singer called Liz who sung with us, and she left to do other things, and I started to kind of try and sing in my own way, and it kind of developed from there, and we would kind of gig, and then I spent a period of time in Belgium and Germany, and I did a whole bunch of gigs there on my own. Solo, and they would be 1.5 hours a night, just on my own, and probably was the biggest education for me in terms of developing a bit more confidence on stage, both during songs, in between songs, being able to kind of be comfortable with my own voice.
I think it takes a lot of confidence to go solo into foreign countries.
I was a bit mad every now and then.
How do you arrange that? I mean, it's not like Googling gigs, please.
It kind of was-ish, yeah. So I kind of went travelling for a little while, picked up a few contacts, and then I'd get in touch with those contacts. And I would do a mixture of little kind of cafes and house concerts, and experienced it was quite intense. It was quite, find everyone was sat there listening, pin drop silence, which is intense, and I wasn't used to. People were very serious about things, and but also really, really lovely as well. It was the best education I'd come away from that, feeling better, and then I'd need to go every now and then just to top up that confidence.
So I always think the Belgians are particularly good blues territory.
Yeah.
Did you find that?
Yeah, there seemed to be a lot of people into kind of folk blues, blues.
Where did you play in Belgium?
I played a lot in Ghent. There seemed to be a lot of quite young people playing into blues and playing blues, and I played a bit in Antwerp as well. I spent quite a bit of time in Germany playing.
The classic venues in Ghent, I think, were the Debenhams.
Yeah.
We play there?
I didn't know. I played there's a Café de Lodge, I think it was called.
Or Studio Scope?
Yeah.
Good venues.
Yeah.
Good one.
Beautiful.
I mean, the Ghentwars are very unusual people.
Yeah.
Even now, all the students have got photographs with James Dean and Marilyn Monroe.
It seems to be kind of almost a real joy of the past in a way. Yeah.
But journey's a different matter. It's a
Yeah.
whole lot more miles to be driven.
Yeah, I spent a lot of that on trains until kind of years after that. I'd carry everything with me. And,
So how long do you spend altogether in Belgium and Germany?
I'd kind of be there for weeks at a time, come back and then go back again. So
Age again?
I was probably, by that time I was probably kind of 18 to 20 between those years, yeah. So it was a really good education. Really good.
I have to ask you, you ever have a real job?
Yeah. So I kind of, for quite a while, I work for a charity and doing a lot of community projects and bits and pieces. So I've been doing that for a while and playing music as well. Yeah.
So you came back as a 20-year-old veteran.
Don't know about that.
So when did you start thinking about recording?
Mellow Peaches did our first album kind of when I was about 23, 24, I think. I could be wrong, but we've recently had a new baby, so I've lost all track of time. But I must have been about 23, 24. And we recorded an album then, and that was really good fun. We did it in an abandoned factory, and we kept all the sounds of the room and that sort of thing. And we played that for a while, and then for quite a number of years we would kind of play quite a few gigs around the UK really. And then I started thinking a little bit more about wanting to play solo for a few different reasons, and kind of the idea of the album that I recorded, Santiago, came about just from a want to record something that was almost an homage to those really early blues artists that I listened to. So even though the album isn't necessarily, it has its bluesy moments, it's more kind of folk blues, I suppose. I wanted to record it in the same way that I experienced listening to the John Lee Hooker album back when I was a kid. So straight takes, no overdubs, more about the performance than about kind of making it perfect. And I just wanted to try and do that once.
Where does Santiago come from?
Santiago was the title track of that album, and it came about after I had a period of writer's block, and I was really struggling to think of any new ideas. And I read the book The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway, and the title character was called Santiago, and in that book he's a fisherman, but he's quite lousy, and he seems quite unlucky, and he'd go out and not come back with anything much. And one day he caught a beautiful swordfish and tied it to the side of his boat and started making his way back home, and it got attacked by sharks, and it kind of ended up as this kind of mangled corpse. And it's sort of almost this idea that something beautiful becomes something quite ugly. And it's at the time how I sometimes used to sing songs that I would try and write, how I quite like it, and a few days later I hate it. And it's that push and pull, beauty and almost horror. And Santiago, the song came from that. And then the rest of the album was written pretty quickly after that, really. It's always kind of starts with one song sometimes, doesn't it? So, yeah.
You don't actually write on the job. You go in the studio and know what you're doing.
Yeah, I was on a budget, so I had everything. Apart from, I did a lap slide instrumental, which I worked out 5 minutes before going in. But the rest of it, I had worked out, because it was all about getting the right performance. So I had to go in knowing that I could do that performance well.
Let's talk about your best friend, your guitar.
Yes.
How long have you been owning the one you currently play?
The one I currently play, probably 5 years, and it's a really important guitar for me because I was having some hand issues years ago, and I didn't realise why, and I now understand more why. Kind of like neurological issues, and I was having trouble with playing the guitar that I was playing, and I went to the London Guitar Show, and I'd heard about these guitars called Waterloo guitars. They're ladder braced. They're kind of made by the company Collins, and it's their kind of take on Kalamazoo guitars in the Depression era. So very thin tops, very lightly braced, ladder braced, funky blues boxes that have just resonant, sweet, thick trebles, woody, all those things. And I went and tried one, and it had a big baseball back neck, and it just fit my hand like a glove. And yeah, I've kind of kept that ever since, and it changed how I play. It slowed me down a little bit in a good way. It's really helped me to carry on playing, really. So it's really important, the guitar, and it's one that I'll have forever.
So this is the love of your life. You're going steady.
We're in a serious relationship. Yeah. Those who know me will have heard me talk about that guitar enough.
Have you ever played one of Chicken Bone John's cigar box guitars?
I have, yeah, I have, and it's always great fun, and I love seeing John whenever I can. He reminds me of when Mellow Peaches, the duo I was in, started playing. We played a few gigs and bits and pieces, but when we really felt part of the blues scene was actually at the Tower Song in Cotteridge, and we played at the opening night, and you had Chicken Bone John and Ken Stratford playing double bass. You had Baba Jack, you had ourselves, and that's where we met our friends Abby Budgeon and Dan Wilkins, who are just phenomenal musicians. And there's a real kind of scene that seemed to develop around blues, folk blues, country blues, whatever we call it. Blues in all its styles, I suppose. John's always been a lovely chap who I really enjoy seeing whenever I can. Yeah, it's been a while now, really.
So your current repertoire, is it a mix of originals and standards?
Yes, it is, yeah, and it pulls in everything that I'm interested in, so it's stuff from Santiago, standards, so standard blues, things like Ain't No Grave, gospel, like Will the Circle Be Unbroken, but I also like playing versions of Dylan songs, things like When the Ship Comes In and things like that, but I also really like quite a lot of instrumental music. I'm a real fan of, do you know Joseph Spence? Yeah, so I have a go at trying to do some songs that he's done as well. He's very unique in his style, so it's quite hard to get exactly right, but I quite like doing some of his stuff. And I'm quite into all sorts of Irish music as well, and so I'll try and play the odd kind of jig or reel as well when I can.
That sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So, what's the mix? What proportion of your set are originals?
Probably say about kind of 70% of what I play is original.
Okay.
Yeah, and the rest of it's I kind of do vary. I sort of have a rough idea of a set list, but I don't totally set it in stone until I'm on stage, because you'll get a sense. If I'm playing at a folk club, generally speaking, they'll want to hear songs that they know, so I'll probably that ratio will change, as opposed to another venue where it's more about songwriting. Yeah, so it kind of varies.
Are there plans for the future? Do we go back a bit? Your current repertoire, does it still include Brunsey and John Lee Hooker? Shame on you.
No, it doesn't. No, because I realised there's no way I could sound like them. There's no way I could sound anywhere near as good as them. And I kind of, if I did, I'd have to change it entirely into a version that I would be comfortable with. So, for instance, one of my biggest influences, actually, after I started listening to the old blues, is Kelly Joe Phelps. And he does a version of Rowan Gary Davis's "I Am the Light of This World," and I've heard him talk about it before. And he talks about it being he took the very basic melody and changed it to something totally different and in his own, but kept the essence of it. And I'm much more into trying to do that with old blues tunes where I can, purely because I feel so conscious that it just doesn't sound anywhere near as good as Brunsey. His thumb was like, I don't know, it was like lead. It was so beautiful.
He was a Chicago jazz musician before.
Yes.
Was converted by a Belgian, funny enough.
Yeah, it's that funny thing, isn't it? It's that kind of perception of, I don't know, a bit of reading around some of that kind of, because he was obviously quite a successful musician, and what's seen as successful is going more into kind of electric music or jazz, but actually the appeal was more for that folk music, kind of, dungarees, folk music, country blues, roots kind of side of things, and he became massively popular with all that, but he retained his chops, for ages, didn't he?
But the dungarees were bought for him by Yannick Broekhoek.
Yeah, exactly my point. Yeah.
So, now you're solo.
Yeah.
Have you any plans to augment, or is this it? Is this the road forward?
I'm enjoying playing solo for a few reasons. I'd be lying if I didn't say financially it helps as well. But also it's really nice because on a night I try not to play each song at the same time. And it's nice being able to change and twist and move around songs, but not have to worry about it working with other people that I'm playing with. But I would definitely have aspirations to kind of try and pick up an electric guitar and play fingerstyle on that at some point for sure, when I've got a bit more time and headspace. I'd love to do, there's a guy in America called Jake Zerzi's Fazell, who I'd really recommend. He plays fingerstyle electric guitar with drums and bass, and it sounds fabulous. I'd love to kind of do something like that at some point, one day.
Well, going right back to the beginning of this conversation, we talked about your recordings. How many albums have you actually recorded so far? Just the Santiago, or?
Well, I've been involved in a few. So I've been involved in 3 recordings in total, but of my own, 1, Santiago, and I plan to do a follow-up at some point. I did an album with Mellow Peaches called I'll Go Down With a Ship. And I also sometimes play in a bluegrass trio. We play banjo with them. I say bluegrass loosely, we play a lot of ragtime, we do songs like Salty Dog and all sorts. And we're called the Brave Sons of Elijah Perry. So we have a mandolin, resonator and banjo, or gitcho sometimes. And we did an album together which was great fun as well. So yeah, we're kind of sort of 3 I suppose, but 1 of my own. Yeah.
And your next recording project is going to be?
Be another Amit Dattani one I suppose, yeah, but probably with a few more musicians brought into it as well. Yeah.
And you're currently sort of off the road, aren't you, because of your the new acquisition?
The new one, yeah. My little boy called Jay. I did have a few gigs. So he was born in June, and I had some gigs probably a couple of months back, which was great. I played at Upton Blues Festival, and this was back when he was probably a month old, and I was pretty delirious with no sleep and all sorts, and played at a church at Trevor from Baba Jacket, arranged. There's probably about 200 people there, and that was quite unnerving, I'll be honest, from having not played for a while. But something about sleep deprivation makes you not care as much, which definitely helped. Definitely helped. I cared, it went well, but not that much. That helped.
So when do you expect to be back on the road?
Well, probably next kind of summer or so. So I kind of need to get back into making contact with venues and things. So there's a lot of leaving time with some of that. So yeah, back kind of probably next summer-ish, yeah.
Well, may I put in an early request that we find a Tuesday free week featuring you?
I'd absolutely love to, yeah. I'm Birmingham based, so it'd be great.
I thought you were Stourbridge.
I'm Birmingham, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, Sturchley. Right next to Dad's Lane Chip Shop.
Oh,
I should mention that because Dad the only chip shop, to be honest.
That's a deep blues territory.
The Delta. Yeah.
Have any questions for Amit Dattani? I'm sure he'll welcome them. Come on, Chris, you're our question man.
Everything, I think. Yeah, I think I've covered it from soup to nuts. Okay, I'll throw one in.
Excuse me, not about horse racing, right?
No. Out of all the gigs you've done so far, is there one that stands out that's given you the most personal satisfaction that you really got such a kick out of, playing with someone or whoever?
Yeah, there's always ones that stand out, but the one that I probably enjoyed the most was in Dorset, and there's a venue there called the Square and Compass, and it's magical, and it's like being in the Shire, in that it's just the roofs are this tall and everything's wood, and it's a pub that has its own fossil museum and little hatches and things, and we played, and it was when I was playing with Mellow Peaches, and it was just the most wonderful gig, and people were so into it, and people in the audience had spoons and started joining in on spoons and all sorts. And we probably did about 4 or 5 encores until the owner just opened the hatch and just shouted at us and told us to stop playing. And I remember finishing that delirious. I mean, we probably had a lot of beer as well, and you probably saw the most beautiful night sky I've ever seen. It's right on the Jurassic Coast. So I'd say if you're indoor, and I've come across a few, obviously with touring and things, you pick up kind of friends and other musicians, and each of those who have come across that place have similar stories. So
where is it exactly?
It's in It's in Dorset, and it's in, I forgot the name of the place, called Worth Mathers or something. I might have pronounced that wrong. It's there. I would recommend going there. Pretty much everyone who's been there has never regretted it.
Hi, Chico here. What's
Hello.
your favourite open tuning and what does it mean to you?
It's a good
As a
question.
guitarist.
Okay. I've got quite a few tunings that I really favour, and it changes. So I'm currently on an open C kick at the moment. But probably my favourite tuning, it's actually double drop D. Because I was really into a player called, still am so into a player called Paul Carreri, who's from Virginia, and he plays kind of country blues and roots music. And he used that tuning quite a lot, and it's still quite similar to standard, but you've got your 3Ds there to kind of play around with and get a lot of harmonics and a lot of kind of syncopation as well. That gives you a lot of room for manoeuvre. So definitely that, yeah.
I'd like to hear some of that.
Ah, great, yeah. Okay.
Have you got your guitar?
I don't.
Ah!
Right.
Next time. More questions? Yeah. Let's give a real Henry's round of applause to Amit Dattani.